Hey everyone, this is George along with Septina, Leslie, and Sabrina, and our topic is housing infants and incarcerated mothers. Just a little overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll first be talking about statistics and facts pertaining infants and incarcerated mothers. We'll then be talking about housing infants and incarcerated mothers around the world. You know, how is it like in places like Brazil or Cameroon? We'll talk about that later. We'll then be talking about the effects on the baby. Will it be negative or positive outcomes? We'll then be talking about living conditions for both the infant and the mother and how to properly uh, give them living conditions. And then finally, we'll talk about pregnancies via rape caused by correctional staff members. Some statistics and facts that I found were pretty interesting. Between 1980 and 2017, the number of incarcerated women in the US has grown more than 750%. This is interesting to me because it really goes to show that there's an increase of crimes done by women. You know, back then, like in the 1980s, um, it was more common, I guess, for men to commit crimes. But, you know, as time goes on, it kind of equalized and men and women equally commit crimes no matter what. Another statistic that I found was interesting is of the 225,000 women locked up today, only 15% are prohibited from being shackled or restrained during pregnancy or labor. That's interesting to me because I believe that it should be 100%. Because no matter what the crime, all women don't deserve to be shackled while being in such an uncomfortable situation. You know, this is during pregnancy or labor while they're like crying or screaming. So it should be 100%. Another statistic that I found is 5 to 10% of women enter prisons or jails while being pregnant. This really goes to show because 5 to 10% is a really small amount of number, and it kind of shows that like is there a relationship between being pregnant and committing a crime? You know, maybe women wouldn't want to commit a crime because they're pregnant. Just something to think about. And lastly, another statistic that I found is about 2,000 babies are born by incarcerated women every year. What it's like around the world. In Brazil, there has been an increase in syphilis within the female prison units. If you don't know what syphilis is, it's a sexually transmitted infection that has prevailed specifically in Brazil and within the prison units. And basically what it does is it could cause pregnant women to have negative effects such as miscarriages or even stillbirths, pretty sad stuff. And basically what would be a good thing about this is if pregnant women were given the proper treatment, that will help reduce the number of cases. You know, pregnant women in the prison cells were to have their own cells rather than sharing cells with people that aren't pregnant that could possibly have syphilis and could potentially affect them negatively. In lighter news, though, in Cameroon, pregnant women in prisons are treated with respect and proper care. What I mean by that is adequate nutrition and sanitary conditions are given to the pregnant women while in prison. They're treated very well, and even when after birth, they are given lengthy time to spend with their newborn babies, so they can grow a good connection. Now it's going to be Septina. She'll be talking about the effects on the baby.
My name is Septina, and today I will be going over some of the effects as a result of prison nursery type programs for infants and their mothers. So to start out, some of the psychological and developmental effects include that the infants are at an increased likelihood of developing psychiatric and psychological issues such as ADHD, depression, anxiety, and things like that. But on a more positive note, the prison nursery programs do allow for there to be a relationship between children and their mothers, which ultimately result in a more positive and stable family environment for the whole family when the mother is released from prison. So moving on, some of the social effects that are seen in children due to their parents being incarcerated are that younger children tend to internalize their feelings about their parents being incarcerated, in turn leading to behavioral issues. And this also makes them feel alienated from their peers because most of their peers don't have incarcerated parents, so they don't have anyone to relate to. Also, for children that aren't housed with their mothers, they're typically housed with other family members or even in the system. So they don't get that family home life like the rest of their peers do, which makes them feel even more alienated from those around them. Wrapping up, I would like to talk about some of the results that are seen due to prison nursery programs. So as you can see, the quote that I have here shows that between the ages of 0 and 3 are the most important developmental stages for children, and this time in their life sets the tone for the rest of their life from a developmental perspective. So overall, after doing this research, I think that prison nursery programs are positive resources for mothers and their children because it allows the mother to be part of their child's life while also giving them a sense of motivation to no longer commit crimes and leave that part of them in the past.
Being pregnant while incarcerated is something that does happen. The best way to ensure both the infant and incarcerated mother are properly taken care of is to administer programs that benefit both parties in the long run. Carlson states that the majority of incarcerated women believe that they are responsible for their child upon release. This desire to care for the child after release is better established if a bonding has occurred with the mother and the child after birth. Typically, when incarcerated women give birth, they have handcuffs strapped to their legs and are expected to give up their child after the birth. The child then goes to either a relative or given up for adoption. No relationship is built between the mother and the child. While the restraints are taken off during active labor, after 20 minutes, they are expected to be chained up once again. Something that has recently been demonstrated in few prisons across the country are prison nursery programs. Nebraska is one of the few states that has successfully implemented prison nurseries into their correction system. Nebraska has only one women's prison in their state. 22% of the incarcerated women in this prison are multiple offenders, and the average stay was 6.7 months. With an increase of incarcerated pregnant women from 1982 to 1999, Nebraska implemented a nursery program to help minimize some of the problems that stem from separating inmates from their children at birth. One program implemented with the prison nurseries is called MOLD, or the Mother Offspring Life Development Program. This program is designed to help educate mothers on how to take care of their infants. In the Indiana Women's Prison, new mothers are supported by nannies. These nannies are other inmates who have the privilege to be separated from the main prison and allowed to reside in the nursery building. An Ohio State Prison's nursery program is depicted as a model program for the initial care of infants with incarcerated mothers. With grant support from Ohio State University, this prison is able to have a contracted pediatrician on staff. Like depicted in the show Born Behind Bars, the admission to these types of programs is not absolute. Prison nurseries are programs that have schedules and waitlists that need to be followed. While it is ideal to have all infants be admitted to these nursery programs, there are still set criteria that the mothers must adhere to. Those being, the mother must be serving a felony conviction for a fourth or fifth degree felony and have a release date within 36 months. The mother cannot have convictions for any crimes against children. The mother must have minimum or medium security custody status. Both the mother and the infant must be medically cleared to participate, and the mother must maintain an appropriate conduct record and adhere to all program rules, which include positive participation in individual and family treatment planning. One of the arguments against these types of facilities and programs in prisons is that it will cost more to the state. Some of these nursery programs are funded by government grants and donations. But when deciding between costs that are already paid for by taxpayers and an infant's health, what is more important? Without these types of facilities, infants are likely to either have their medical needs covered by Medicaid, which is also a government-sponsored program, or should not have access to health care at all. While basic needs can be met through these types of programs, there are still conditions that exclude infants from being able to join, such as special needs, special personnel, or maintenance medication not able to be accommodated in the prison, recognized inborn errors of metabolism, recognized congenital defects, family history risk factors such as a sibling with sudden infant Down syndrome, drug, drug addiction infants not on medication, even if medically stable, and small for gestational age infants that do not meet nutritional requirements, even if medically stable. The ultimate goal of these programs is to reduce inmate recidivism. Goshen believes that innovative interventions are needed to address the incarcerated population. While results vary state to state, one study done in a New York State prison nursery gives promising results. Out of the 139 women who were a part of the prison nursery between 2001 and 2007, only 4% of the women returned to prison. According to Goshen, while 1/3 of the inmates from the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women returned for new crimes, only 9% of those women were a part of the nursery program. These types of programs not only reduce the rate of recidivism, but also lower the rate of misconducts. Carlson found that 45% of inmates received fewer misconducts after entering the nursery program. A 10-year study done in Nebraska demonstrated a lower recidivism rate of 16.8% of women who participated in the nursery program.
For my subtopic, I wanted to discuss incarcerated women who become pregnant during their sentence via correctional officers. Despite the Prison Rape Elimination Act, incarcerated women continue to experience sexual abuse such as groping, forced oral sex, and rape by correctional officers. According to Butch in 2007, numerous incarcerated women who are raped and become impregnated are transported to solitary confinement as a form of punishment for becoming pregnant or having sexual contact with correctional officers. As noted by FEDOC and other authors, to register cases of sexual misconduct, incarcerated women must file a grievance through correctional officers, as they are restricted to other forms of reporting their sexual abuse. However, filing grievances also have limitations such as time, content, and methods. However, each correctional facility varies in limitations. Racial bias also appears to play an important role for sexual abuse cases being investigated in correctional facilities. A study conducted by FEDOC and other authors found that 42.4% of African American women reports of sexual misconduct are less likely to be investigated and found inconclusive, while 65.9% of reports made by white women were at least investigated once. Women who become pregnant during their sentence are often ridiculed, harassed, or not believed by correctional officers. Cook reports that the factors that influence correctional staff's attitude towards incarcerated women who experience sexual abuse or become pregnant are rape myths, victim blaming, traditional gender roles, and the culture of sexual assault. Additionally, correctional staff take into account the incarcerated woman's credibility and sanity and the relationship with the perpetrator before taking action or a stance on the sexual abuse case. Despite these considerations, incarcerated women who become pregnant still face harassment, as they are often blamed if a staff member is fired or punished. Incarcerated women who become pregnant during their sentence have a constitutional right to access an abortion. However, this depends on the state in which their correctional facility is located in. According to SUF in 2019, many states allow termination of pregnancies if they are medically necessary or during the first trimester. However, many other states restrict access to abortion completely. Gibbs and other authors state that about only 1% of incarcerated women receive abortions compared to the expected abortion acceptance rate of 19%. This occurs as access to abortion is difficult for incarcerated women as a result of not being able to pay for the abortion, absent or strict policies in correctional facilities, transportation to abortion clinics, and security measures that correctional facilities must take. An example of an inmate becoming pregnant via a correctional officer is Anquinette. Anquinette Woodwell was 3 years into her sentence when she was raped by correctional officer Travis Hinson at Gadsden Correctional Facility. According to Penny, 2019, Woodwell was unable to get an abortion as the state of Florida declared that her family would have to cover the cost of the abortion rather than the state. During her pregnancy, Woodwell was subject to physical and verbal abuse by other correctional staff, where she was often referred to as slut, snitch, and whore. Travis Hinton was charged with rape and was sentenced to serve 4 years in prison, but he is to be released in 2022. These are our sources. Thank you so much for watching.